Hello everyone and welcome to another video. My name is Alex and today we're talking about Sylas. So Sylas is the dashing, slapping, whacking, and stabbing type of champion who hurls himself into battle with his chains, magic chains to be precise. He's someone who's very invested in magic and, some people didn't really like that very much. So they locked him up in wizard jail. And then years later when he's an adult he breaks out because an 18-year-old light bulb can't resist a rugged man with an accent. So if you like to steal other people's things and inflict yourself with blunt force trauma to play a champion, then I suggest Sylas is just that champion. To get started, let's talk a bit about Sylas' skills, and while I'll be buying 10 feet of chains to decorate my bathroom. Sylas' passive is called Petricite Burst. After casting an ability, Sylas gets a stack of his passive. Sylas' next auto attack causes him to do a spin move, consuming a stack and hitting enemies around him with his chains, dealing magic damage. Additionally, while you have these stacks, your attack speed is increased for each stack. Sylas' Q is called Chain Lash. You slap down your chains, dealing magic damage and slowing enemies. At the vertex of the chains, you get magical explosion that deals more magic damage. It's kind of a tricky ability to hit, so as you're just like practicing, there's a little bit of wind-up time that's easy to dodge, so practice hitting it and leading targets, stuff like that. This is going to be a really good poke skill, especially if you level it first, so get used to using it. Sylas' W is called Kingslayer. Jail wasn't so kind to Sylas, and he learned to think of unusual solutions to get him out of sticky situations. So he stabbed a bitch with his handcuffs. So he lunges forward and stabs someone and deals magic damage and also heals himself based on the amount of health that he's missing. This is your main ability, and it's the one you're probably most of the time, 99.99% of the time, going to level up first, like max it first, because you can heal a surprising amount of health and pretty much dick over your opponent most of the time, even through grievous wounds a lot of the times. Sylas' E is called Abscond Abduct. There are two parts to this ability. The first cast makes Sylas do a dash forward, and then after you do that, you can cast it again to throw his chains forward. When the chains connect with an enemy, they get stunned. Sylas gets pulled towards them, and then they get knocked up briefly. Sylas' ultimate is called Hijack. He steals other people's ultimates. That's it. You just take the ultimate, and if you don't know what the ultimates do, you're gonna need to know all the ultimates do. There are some weird interactions with some of them, like transforming ults and other things, but you can look that up on your own. So our runes are going to be pretty standard. Conqueror for our keystone, because just like Sylas, we're unoriginal. We do a lot of skill spamming and auto attacking, so Conqueror synergizes very well with our kit. If you're up against a ranged champion, you might want to take fleet footwork if if you need some more sustain, or if you're not confident being able to dodge abilities, or they're an opponent that's going to just poke you consistently. Other runes will be Presence of Mind, Tenacity, and Last Stand. You're gonna most of the time be really low health all the time, and your W does a lot of damage, so getting extra damage out of it is good. So Last Stand's gonna be great. So your second runes are up to you. I go Cookies and Cosmic Insight because I want extra mana and healing, and also having Spell, Summoner, Ability Haste, and or Item Ability Haste. Transcend is good because more spells is more good because you're the king of spells. Because Sylas is the king of skill spam. Transcendence is good because more spells is more good, and Sylas is the king of skill spam, so nothing else is really amazing at sorcery, so just go with your gut. Sylas is pretty flexible. Pick what you want. I suggest taking the ability haste rune at the bottom. I don't talk about them much because they're usually a kind of intuitive choice, but ability haste is really good, and we want to cast as many skills as possible. So you might be asking, Alex, what kind of items does a homicidal mage man with magic chains and no shirt build as items? Well, I would have to say usually Dark Seals and Refillable Pot is our starting purchase. Dark Seals is too good to pass up. You just hold on to it for the entire game until you get 10 stacks and build the Magi's, or if it's your last slot, you can just sell it. It's a really broken item. Why is this item in the game? Otherwise, if you're feeling a bit more safe, you can take Corrupting Pot, or you can go Doran's Ring. Either one of those fine. They're all fine choices. It just depends on if you want to scale more, if you want to have a good early game. Everfrost is going to be your mythic of choice. It gives you all the stats that you need: health, CDR, mana, and more CC, because it's all great. And you would tend to be a bit more the tankier side because we build a lot of health items, so it really builds into that. It also gives you more ability power. I'll have to say that Riftmaker is okay. It's permissible. Like right now, it got buffed a couple patches ago at the time of this video, and I've tried a few times in games with lots of tanks, like 3+ tanks. Like you have an Ornn top, and a Moonbu jungle, and a Leona bot lane. That kind of says Everfrost ain't gonna cut it. So maybe Riftmaker is what you want to go. It gives you the same stats as Everfrost. It does give you health CDR, and it does give you true damage and a lot of healing. So helps out a bit fighting more tanks. Definitely try it out. Other than that, you'll be focusing on items that give you health, AP, and ability haste. Again, we want to pretend to be a physicist, arguing with a flat earther on Reddit, and turn ourselves into handsome Squidward to cast as many skills as possible. Like, just spam the skills. Just mash, take your hands, your bare hands, and just maul the keyboard. Just pretend you're just making bread, you're kneading. I'm trying to make an analogy with something about the keyboard, but just slam it. Just slam your dick all over it. Just slide it like a piano. For your second and third items, Zonia's and Cosmic Drive. Both of them give ability haste, give you some good passives, and obviously you don't want to be blown up in the middle of a team fight. There are the situation items you can build like Banshee's Veil, Merlinomicon, whatever you need, but those are the two main items you're going to pick up. Now the part you've been waiting for. How do you even play such a complex, mechanically difficult champion like Sylas? Look, he isn't that difficult. Mechanically, Sylas does a couple weird things, like you can chain certain skills together, but overall, you're basically using your abilities as they come off cooldown. Q and W do the most damage, E is from ability and CC, and ultimate because you like that thing. They're pretty straightforward. The only things that I can say about Sylas are a bit tricky are using your E properly and picking a good ultimate. Your E is probably your second most important ability, right next to your W. But landing the second part, the stun, is going to make a huge difference in your fighting ability and trading. Oh no, dude. What? No. Picking a good ultimate, on the other hand, really comes down to a few things and isn't something you always want to be spamming out all the time. You want to pick very carefully. If you want a utility ultimate, does a CC, slow, or buff someone. If you want a damaging ultimate, is it an AD or AP ultimate? I forgot to mention this earlier, when you ult someone, they have an internal cooldown on them. So you can't just like spam your ult on them until like later in the game when the cooldowns are very low. When you cast it, they have an internal cooldown. That cooldown actually gets decreased by ability haste, but still, you can't just like pick their ult, use it, and then pick it again, because your ultimate will come off cooldown before that internal cooldown comes off. So just be aware of that. Early game, you're going to want to test and see if you can trade. If you can be aggressive, like if you're seeing that you're winning all the trades, be aggressive. Try to be as aggressive as possible without being dumb, like I am a lot of the times. If you can overpower your opponent early, you'll have a much easier time getting to your mid-game power spike. Abuse that power. If you can't do that, max Q first, clear waves, and roam. And speaking of roaming, try to do it as much as you can. Sylas is very good at roaming, not just it's not because he's faster than anyone or can get across the battlefield really easily. Your ultimate is very powerful when you gank and roam, because you're essentially a champion that takes the most powerful ability of any of your opponents, and you can use it at your will. So you're really good at ganking side lanes because you can have 2 or 3 ultimates to pick from, and especially bot lane because support ultimates are very powerful, especially because you're Sylas and having like a Nami ultimate or Leona ultimate or a Braum ultimate is super powerful to turn team fight or something like that. So roam a lot if you can. If you're finding that you're controlling lane very well, roam. Just roam. So what does Sylas not like? Well, the moon. It's just, why is it there? The cold, because obviously he doesn't wear a goddamn shirt, and being stared at because he isn't wearing a goddamn shirt. Diana is rough in general. She's tanky, has better defense, more damage, and you can get a pentakill while being 0-6 with an amplifying tome. You have to be careful. She is good. You have decent sustain. Okay, you have W. Kingslayer's really good OP ability, but Diana has a lot more damage early on and a lot more shielding. Her shield refreshes when she deals damage to you because the 3 balls hit you and then it refreshes, so you'll probably won't even deal enough damage to her early on, and she'll snowball out of control and just one-shot you. Now, it isn't to say that it's a bad matchup in general. Later in the game, when you get to mid-game, you start picking out that power spike and you've played safely, you have her ultimate to get. It's a very powerful ultimate, especially for a team fight. You dash in, chain someone, and then boom, and then just take it. Like, that's really good. So it's a beneficial thing for the long run. So don't feel too bad that you can't beat up Diana. Unless she's really bad and you can abuse her. That's also a thing. Now, Anivia is going to be one of your tougher matchups, probably one of the toughest one, especially in the laning phase. Not just because of your shirtless lifestyle, but because she's pretty good into melee mids that aren't people that have an unhealthy obsession with knives. Her kick can keep you in a blizzard, and damage can be very surprising early on. Save your E for dodging her stun or getting over ice wall. Her ice wall is really powerful. Like, if you get caught by her wall in her ultimate, you're pretty much dead. Or you'll have very hard icy nipples as you go back to base. Again, you don't wear a shirt. So I just put goddamn clothes on. You'll never push her when she has her ult, so ring for ganks or roam, or you just like ask for ganks. Ask for ganks for Anivia, especially like as she early on, so you can keep her subdued. And she's also a very powerful champion in team fights as well. So she also isn't a champion that you can take her ultimate. Like, it's okay. It's not great. It does use use up all of your mana, you will not have enough mana to use your ultimate pretty much, because you'll build tier or any of the other mana items. Just, yeah, that's Anivia for you. And lastly, there's Malzahar. He is a weird one because he's not like particularly strong against you in the laning phase. It can be annoying if he's good at dodging your abilities, which can cause problems, because if he dodges your abilities like your stun and your Q, then you won't be doing any damage to him. He'll just stick his wieldings on you and put some space aids on top of your head. But power comes from that he can just passively push waves and then team fight, and his team fighting is good because even if you're fed, he can just ult you. I actually played Malzahar against the Sylas. I lost my early game. I was 0-6, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because I could just ult the Sylas, and guess what he had to buy? He had to buy a Quicksilver Sash, which is a dead item in your inventory. So you're going to be losing out in the long run if you fight up Malzahar. Ask for ganks early, and you have to win the game fast. I'm not kidding, especially because Sylas, and this is just a general like statement about Sylas. He's not a late game champion. You have to win before late game hits, because if you hit late game, you won't be able to finish out the game unless you do some really crazy shit. Just be aware of that. Unless you bought Magi's that can kind of keep you powerful in the late game. But there's a lot of scaling champions this season, and champions that scale really well into late game, so just be aware of that. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Sylas. Aside from his weird chain fetish and a compulsion to refuse clothing, he's a very fun and strong champion that I've really become to love and enjoy. He's really fun, and I think it's like I enjoy different play styles. Like Azir is very much like patient play style. You farm, you choose specific ways to play, like, or times to go in and do stuff. Sylas is like all in all the time, except when you're not. But yeah, hopefully this guide gave you what you need to start playing him, and maybe you gain a few LP because of it. Please do slap the like button with some chains if you enjoyed. It really helps out a lot. Subscribe if you want to watch more stuff that I make, like this video and other videos, and leave a comment down below about anything that I may have missed, or tell me if you pick up Sylas and if you're getting some wins. Also, I stream. Come watch the pain, despair, and unflinching determination of a guy who wants to climb on a daily basis. Also, for Discord, you can get announcements and stuff and talk to me. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And if you got this far, I appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!